Greetings, traveler. Welcome to my tower. I hope your gear is ready, as we have an important task. We must defend Skyrim, or rather, defend Skyrim as a piece of media. In the past few years, I've heard the growing opinion along the lines that the Stormcloak faction of Skyrim are, well, racist. And by extension, the real world, I guess you could say, supporters of the Stormcloaks are likewise racist. So, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in and say, yeah, that's a pretty ludicrous conclusion to draw from an in-game faction that openly allows you to fight alongside them, regardless of your chosen race. Disclaimer, I'm taking a look at the content for what it is on its own, and I don't really have time to create a network of intelligence gatherers to determine if the fandom is planning to save Europa. With that out of the way, let's take a look at 2 videos that were brought to my attention that sums up this position.
So what is up with the Stormcloaks? Why do I say that it's an irresponsible form of writing on Bethesda's part?
So our mutual paladin Trev had made a video talking about the racism in the Elder Scrolls fandom and how the Stormcloak writing was irresponsible on Bethesda's end, which I agree with, by the way.
First, I'd just like to say that this person doesn't really look like they've written anything of substance in their lives. What more is the Bethesda writing staff even responsible for other than making a rich narrative? This was the same rhetoric used by evangelical congressmen who wanted to ban video games because they made kids into killers somehow. It's such a moot point. So I'm going to replace responsibility with quality and argue that Bethesda actually put together a pretty quality narrative for the backdrop of the Elder Scrolls V.
It has a lot of real life inspiration, and because of it, it has real life similarities to white nationalist groups.
That's a pretty bold accusation, so let's hear these reasons.
Which is why it's part of this alt-right pipeline.
If Skyrim is part of the pipeline, then holy shit, did that backfire.
Start with the name, Stormcloak. What does that sound like? Stormfront, the white supremacist website that's been in service since the 90s? One of the first hate forums on the internet?
Well, the faction draws its name from Ulfric's Stormcloak. There largely wasn't any racial undertone behind the name, rather, its members closely adhere to the cause of its leader. As a matter of fact, it was the Empire that coined the term and the Stormcloaks themselves just decided to roll with it. He uses the term draws inspiration from as if Todd drew inspiration directly from Stormfront. I guess World of Warcraft's Stormheim is a result of this alt-right indoctrination as well. Hell, Stormtroopers 2, Stormbreaker from Marvel? I think any piece of fiction that mentions a storm needs to be held accountable.
How did the Stormcloaks become, famous, or how did they start their prominence? By putting down the insurrection of the native Reachmen who just wanted sovereignty for their own ancestral land? Now, the Stormcloaks say that's what they want for themselves, but they can't give that to the Reachmen?
Wrong! Actually, there are several points to the contrary that justify Skyrim reclaiming the Reach as their own territory. First, it is said that in the First Era, 240, the Nords first encountered the Proto-Breton Manmiri race, also known as the Ancient Reachmen in High Rock. The encounter was beyond the Reach, which was at the time within Nordic territory. That means yes, the Nords inhabited the Reach prior to the Reachmen, who were discovered west of the Reach. It was only after this point of first contact, the Proto-Reachmen started trickling into the far western territory of Skyrim from High Rock. But for at least 260 years, the Reach still wasn't in any kind of legitimate Reachman control that would even suggest their own independent sovereignty. Their race originally lived under the rule of the Durrani hegemony, who took back the at the time Nordic territories of High Rock that were conquered during the Skyrim conquests, and even pushed into Skyrim's territory around 401, occupying the Reach, which included Markarth, of course. It was only in the year 500 that the Proto-Reachmen rose up against the collapsing Elven Kingdom, at this point now having independent control of High Rock's western Reach and eventually the Reach of Skyrim. Even then, their race was stretched thin across Skyrim's Reach, only truly taking up residence in Markarth after the Dwemer disappeared around the year 700. So, while the argument can easily be made that perhaps the Reach may have been originally settled by the Snow Elves, the same cannot be said regarding the ancient history of the Reachmen. Quick digression. It may actually be possible that the Nords were literally the first settlers of the land, as the Snow Elves lived in portions of Skyrim, while the Nordic Empire held all of Skyrim. Plus, if you want to tie in real-world far-right rhetoric, you shouldn't take the side of the now extinct Snow Elves, who literally hit the Nords with a crystal-knocked type of sneak attack, killing Nordic people indiscriminately after growing fear that they would replace them. Their subsequent extinction can largely be attributed to their own underhanded pogrom against the Nords. How's that for inspiration?
What is the Nord tagline? What is the battle cry for the Nords? Skyrim belongs to the Nords. That sounds a lot like England for the English, America for Americans, Ireland for the Irish. And all those taglines just mean we don't want people of color here. We want white folks here.
The tagline, Skyrim is for the Nords, is not about racial exclusivity regarding the presence of other races, or even their degree of political power. It's about the agency afforded to the Nords within their own homeland, a foundational element of Nordic people being effectively outlawed in Skyrim. Outlaws Nords from being, well, Nords. Skyrim is for the Nords to be Nords in, but that isn't as catchy of a war cry. Plus, the real-life racist examples you mention aren't really symbolic at all, as they're independent countries. Skyrim is under the rule of a foreign governance, more akin to French Indochina or the British Raj, since you love your real-world analogies.
The post that you commented on, all I said was, boy oh boy, I wish people would stop commenting racist things on my Elder Scrolls content. You know what a lot of the comments were that people started making in response to that post? It was just, Skyrim belongs to the Nords. Seems really interesting that that's a lot of these people's response to me just saying, don't be racist, please. You're just proving me right. Like,
and his comments are just full of racist pieces of shit, showing their true colors and proving his point.
No, they're trolling him. That is called trolling. And it has no bearing on the game's quality or responsibility, as you put it. His nonsense point suddenly doesn't become sensible because the comments are having a go at him. You're still at square one.
There's some people that were doing the Dunmer racism too, calling me a liberal noir or something, Enwa.
Enwa, please.
And also the fact that the Imperial Legion is just correct. The only thing they did wrong was ban the worship of Talos.
That's the whole thing. As I mentioned before, that's like a big fucking thing. That's what makes Nords Nords. To add insult to injury, it also represents a larger issue of the Empire acting under duress as a result of the Thalmor, which high-ranking Empire officials even acknowledge. You're defending a system that ultimately pits the Imperials and the Nords against one another, with the Thalmor's anti-Talos policy obviously there to incite some kind of conflict.
Every other metric for who is right and who is wrong in that whole thing, the Imperials are in the right.
Trust me, bro, every other metric that I don't even mention is to the benefit of the Imperials' cause.
Ulfric Stormcloak is a racist piece of shit with a huge ego.
The bulk of this comes from the Windhelm situation. While Ulfric's orders seem blatant, consider that it's actually more complex of a situation than simple prejudice. First, while Ulfric has a discriminatory toleration of the races within his hold alone, it doesn't hold a candle to the racial policies enacted by the other nations of Tamriel. He does not carry out killings or expulsions, rather taking in the refugees of foreign lands. Second, Ulfric is at war. A degree of internment may be necessary considering Windhelm is the command center of the Stormcloak war effort. Third, I don't think many consider this. Ulfric is likely aware of the Argonian-Dunmer relations, and is separating the populations so they don't fucking kill each other in the streets.
Then you're a pussy-ass milk drinker.
Okay. Milk is awesome. That wraps up whatever this was. Reminder that Skyrim does belong to the Nords, and midwits usually lack the depth of knowledge on lore necessary to make worthwhile claims, instead just pulling together political dogma they're fed and desperately trying to make unreasonable connections. Take a break off the internet. I hope you found this video resourceful, insightful, and engaging. Take care.